My initial attempt to write about this topic involved examining YouTube users who pursued a vague algorithm, and then attempted to distinguish them from like others. Due to YouTube's efforts to remove commercials, I had a different plan in mind, but I ultimately chose to drop it in favor of one that is more fundamental, straightforward, and simple to comprehend. Reason applicable to all traders regardless of whether or not they are content creators. A significant proportion of guys are able to recite acronyms and describe female nature. As soon as they see a woman who has learned to conceal the damaging aspects of her personality, or who speaks what he wants to hear, they become blind. He unravels and begins to doubt everything stated to him and information he has absorbed. It is to his detriment that he disregards knowledge and reason in favor of clinging to his innate inclinations. Try to debunk the notion that all women are like Walt, or that all women are alike. I genuinely believe that this is the test to assess whether or not you understand and accept the nature of ladies. You should give Walt's proposal some thought and determine where you stand. If you can argue that not all women are guided by their biological tendencies, and that some women are capable of transcending these instincts, you must explain why this is the case. I'm not sure. But if you believe that, you put yourself in danger of being forced back into slavery by the man who challenged a wall and try to paint the concept with a misogynistic brush, claiming that those who believe it are biased against women, and believe that all women are evil and will spread their legs for any alpha male who plays the game. I have never stated this, and my experiences do not reflect this, as both the woman I am dating now and the woman I dated before her were virgins. There are still some good girls in the world who were raised with traditional values in stable houses. However, this has nothing to do with questioning anew, as their essence is universal. As much as they can mirror the thoughts of men who have an understanding of female nature, these wonderful ladies are nevertheless governed by their biological instincts. However, as soon as they are placed in the real world and required to use what they have learned, they become the typical woman because these males have failed to assimilate the female nature that has become the average woman. As a result of their failure, they revert to the habits that brought them to the group in the first place. A portion of me wonders if they were not prepared, or if they needed further instruction. Another portion of me, though, wonders whether they were not prepared or if they had more to learn. I am uncertain as to why they failed to comprehend and apply the notions they claim affiliation with if they were ever prepared. Man was created for servitude. He is enslaved by his biological desires, his beliefs and principles, and his yearning for offspring. Freedom from these restrictions is reserved for a limited few, who normally keep it to themselves. Due to the current structure of society, GTO was able to work to the extent that it does now. If society were in a different state, I believe that at least 80% of men living in the community would also detach. Men who have lost their course in life have found refuge in MGTOW. If those final men encountered a vessel that offered a glimpse of man's original purpose and a lady who appeared to be decent, they would follow it with all their might. Honestly, I do not blame them. Understanding these hard facts is similar to understanding nihilism, a topic I will discuss in a later piece. Nihilism frequently leaves individuals feeling weak, hopeless, and meaningless, making it difficult to access the true power that resides inside these concepts. To prevent slipping into the abyss, a man must destroy everything that has ever existed before him. But he must never settle for that. His efforts must be refocused, and he must restore himself. The vast majority of these final folks, however, believe it is impossible due to the enormous amount of labor involved. It is much easier to continue banging their heads against the same wall until it becomes so bloody that they assume the wall's color has changed to match their blood and declare victory. Because genuine human fraternity is not something to be taken lightly. A betrayal of the community of men is a major felony deserving of harsh punishment. In these difficult times, each trader will have to confront his or her own nature, something they will have to do till the end of their life. I can only hope that lesser guys will analyze their own weaknesses and use this as an opportunity to strengthen their determination after observing these traders. I also hope they will not succumb to their anxieties and revert to their previous behavior patterns, because accepting that a wall alters you as something to fear is unmistakable. When I first discovered how women functioned, my desire was affected, and I was unable to separate myself from the hatred that occupied my thoughts. Nevertheless, I made a deliberate effort to separate hatred from my thoughts, and once it was isolated, it began to progressively disappear. I will never view women the same way again. All that was left was an acceptance of the fact that the female nature has stayed constant throughout history. Even though we live in a time that supports and encourages the manifestation of the worst sides of human nature, at least they are readily apparent. It is now something that should be investigated, comprehended, and embraced because it is as natural as the rising sun and the shifting tides. Previously, it was an object of hatred. Now, though, it is something that must be investigated, comprehended, and embraced. To help us, please watch this video. Please subscribe and send this video to anybody you think will benefit from it the most.